Democracy. Democracy is fundamentally about power derived from the people. In a democratic system, the authority to govern is granted through popular vote, either directly or through elected representatives. This form of government is rooted in principles of political equality, freedom, and rule by the majority, while still protecting minority rights through established laws and constitutions. Democracies value transparency, accountability, and regular electoral processes where policies and leaders are subject to public scrutiny and change. The underlying belief is that an informed and engaged citizenry is the best guarantor of good governance, promoting a society where individuals have the freedom to express themselves, protest, and contribute to their nation's policy making. Republic. A republic is a form of government where the country is considered a public matter and not the private concern or property of rulers. Typically, republics have elected presidents rather than monarchs. Even more importantly, republics operate under a constitution which offers a set of rules that protect the rights of individuals and delineate the powers and duties of government officials. This system aims to avoid the pitfalls of dictatorship or tyranny by ensuring that power is not concentrated in one individual but spread across various branches of government, usually including an executive, a legislature, and a judiciary. This separation of powers, coupled with checks and balances, is designed to maintain a balanced control, prevent abuse, and secure longevity of democratic principles. Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love. Monarchy. A monarchy is one of the oldest forms of government, where a single family rules from generation to generation. The authority, known as the crown, is inherited, with the country often symbolized by the monarch's figure. Monarchies can be either absolute, where the monarch has almost complete control over governance, or constitutional, where the monarch's powers are restricted by a governing body or constitution. In a constitutional monarchy, the monarch typically serves a ceremonial role, where they embody historical tradition and unity, while elected bodies carry out most governmental responsibilities. This form of government emphasizes stability, continuity, and the unifying persona of the monarch. Constitutional monarchy. Constitutional monarchy blends the historical and ceremonial aspects of monarchy with democratic principles. In this system, a king or queen acts as the state's head, but their powers are limited by a constitution. Unlike absolute monarchies, constitutional monarchies operate under a clear legal framework that delineates the powers of the monarch, often restricting them to ceremonial duties, and vests most authority in elected bodies like a parliament. This form of governance combines the stability and continuity provided by a monarchical figure with the accountability and democratic governance of a parliamentary system. It aims to harness the cultural heritage and national identity embodied by a monarchy while ensuring that government remains responsive to the needs of its citizens through democratic mechanisms. Absolute monarchy. In an absolute monarchy, the monarch holds supreme autocratic authority, not constrained by any laws or legally organized opposition. The monarch's will is effectively the law, and their powers are neither limited nor shared with another governing body. This form of government is often hereditary and can entail complete control over all branches of government, including the legislative, judicial, and executive powers. Absolute monarchies are rare in the modern world but were more common historically. They rely on the belief that a single ruler can provide strong, decisive leadership necessary for effective governance and stability, but they also risk abuse of power and suppression of political freedoms due to the lack of checks and balances. Theocracy. A theocracy is a form of government where religious institutions hold the power, and the state's legal system is based on religious law. In this system, clerics or religious leaders govern the state, and the policies and laws enacted are typically derived from the religion's scriptures. Theocracies often merge the spiritual welfare of the nation with its political governance, believing that this integration helps maintain moral order and aligns the laws of the country with divine will. This form of government can lead to a unified sense of purpose among the populace if the majority shares the same religious beliefs. However, it can also suppress religious freedom and minority rights, potentially leading to social divisions if the population is religiously diverse. Oligarchy. In an oligarchy, power rests with a small number of people distinguished by royalty, wealth, family ties, or military control. These elites have the authority to make most decisions affecting the society, often without much input or opposition from the general population. Oligarchies can form under different circumstances, such as when power is handed down through families, when economic disparities allow the wealthy to dominate political life, or when military leaders control the government. While this can lead to efficient decision-making by a concentrated group, it often decreases democratic participation and can lead to corruption and inequality, as the ruling class may prioritize their interests over the public good. Autocracy. Autocracy features a single individual having unlimited power over the state. This form of government is characterized by the concentration of all political power in the hands of one person, without the constraints of laws, ethics, or opposition. The autocrat makes decisions unilaterally, often disregarding the welfare of the populace. The regime typically lacks transparency, and political freedom is generally minimal, as any form of dissent against the ruler can be severely punished. While autocracies can bring about rapid changes and decisive governance, they can also lead to significant abuses of power and human rights violations. Dictatorship. A dictatorship is an authoritarian form of government where a single leader or a small group holds substantial power and usually takes control through force or manipulation. In a dictatorship, the dictator has absolute control over all aspects of life, including political, economic, and social affairs. The government operates without the consent of the governed, and there is no effective mechanism for the public to influence policy or remove leaders from power. Dictatorships often suppress political opposition and limit personal freedoms, justifying such measures as necessary for state security or national interest. While they can provide stable and controlled governance, they often do so at the cost of personal freedom and human rights. Communism. Communism is a political and social ideology aiming for a classless society where all property is publicly owned, and each person works and receives according to their abilities and needs. In practice, a communist government often involves central planning and the elimination of private ownership of the means of production. Leaders in communist countries typically assert that their actions are towards building a society free of class divisions and economic inequalities. However, historically, many communist states have been characterized by authoritarian rule, where a single party controls the government and suppresses political dissent. The idealistic goal is to create a society where wealth and power are distributed evenly, but implementation often struggles with inefficiencies and lack of incentives for innovation and productivity. Socialism. Socialism is a political and economic theory advocating for the public or collective ownership and administration of the means of production and distribution of goods. Socialist systems emphasize economic equality, often through progressive taxation, large welfare states, and limiting private control over industries deemed essential to the public welfare. The goal is to reduce the disparities in wealth and power caused by capitalist systems, aiming for a distribution based on individual contribution and societal needs. Socialism varies in form, ranging from very mild versions that coexist with capitalist elements to more radical forms that seek to abolish capitalism entirely. While socialism aims to provide for the needs of all citizens and reduce economic inequality, critics argue it can lead to inefficiencies and lack of motivation due to reduced personal economic incentives. Federalism. Federalism is a system of government in which power is divided between a central, national, authority and various constituent regions, states or provinces. This division of powers is typically entrenched in a constitution, preventing either level of government from encroaching on the other's authority. Federal systems are designed to allow for local decision-making in areas best handled at a regional level while maintaining a strong central government that can address national issues. This can lead to a balance of power that accommodates regional differences within a single nation, promoting unity without sacrificing local autonomy. Federalism can encourage political participation and make the government more responsive to the needs of its citizens across diverse regions. Parliamentary system. In a parliamentary system, the government is appointed from the legislature and is directly accountable to it. The executive branch derives its legitimacy from the legislative branch and must maintain the confidence of that legislature to remain in power. Typically, the head of state, which can be a monarch or president, is separate from the head of government, the prime minister. This system fosters a close integration between the legislative and executive branches, often leading to greater stability in lawmaking because the executive must have majority support in the legislature to function. However, it can also lead to concerns about excessive power concentration when one party controls a large majority. Presidential system. A presidential system features a distinct separation of powers between the executive and the legislature. The president is usually elected independently of the legislative body and holds significant authority as both head of state and government. This clear separation helps prevent the executive from wielding excessive power over the legislature and vice versa. It also allows for a stronger, more direct mandate from the electorate to the president, potentially leading to decisive leadership. However, this separation can sometimes result in gridlock, especially when the president and the majority of the legislature come from different political parties. Anarchy. Anarchy refers to a society without a recognized government or authoritative governing body. Anarchists advocate for self-managed, stateless societies based on voluntary cooperation and free association of individuals and groups. Anarchy opposes all forms of hierarchical control and coercive authority, arguing that natural order arises when communities organize themselves without imposed rulers. While often depicted as chaotic and lawless, proponents see anarchy as a mature, rational way to achieve a well-organized society through self-regulation and mutual aid. Critics, however, argue that without some form of government, societies are susceptible to disorder and conflict.